Hi, Mr. Richards here. Today's lesson is on solve equations with rational coefficients. And for our vocabulary startup, two numbers with a product of 1, such as 3/4 and 4/3, are called reciprocals or multiplicative inverses. So the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. We're going to be using reciprocals or multiplicative inverses in our lesson today. So our first key concept is the inverse property of multiplication. The product of a number and its multiplicative inverse is 1. So that 7/8 times 8/7 is equal to 1. Negative 3/2 times negative 2/3 is equal to 1. The numerical factor of a term that contains a variable is called the coefficient of the variable. So we have our variable x, and this number to the left is 3, and that's the coefficient. In the equation 3/4 c equals 18, the coefficient of c is a rational number. It's that 3/4. To solve an equation when the coefficient is a fraction, multiply each side by the multiplicative inverse of the fraction. And so in our guided example here, what you can see is 3/4 c equals 18, and check your solution. They did not divide by 3/4 on both sides. That works, but the best way to solve this is to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 4/3. As you notice here, it cancels out. 4/3 times 3/4 is 1, and you're just left with c on the left. On the right side, you multiply 4/3 times 18 over 1 to get 24. To check our solutions, we always start with the original equation, 3/4 c equals 18. Substitute in your answer of 24. Simplify, and as long as the left side is equal to the right side, our answer of 24 is correct. So now as we move on to our got it questions, we'll come up here and solve. So we'll have, for question A, 1/5 x equals 12. What we can do is multiply by the multiplicative inverse of 1/5, which is 5 over 1. And if we multiply by 5 over 1 on both sides, this cancels out, and we're left with x equals 12 over 1 times 5 over 1. Well, 12 times 5 is 60 over 1 times 1 is 1. And so our answer is x equals 60. Now we are asked to check our solution as well. So we'll come down here to do that. In our check step, always start by writing the original equation, which is 1/5 x equals 12. Our answer was 60, and so we're going to substitute in that 60 for x, and we can write that as 60 over 1 to make it easier to multiply, equals 12. Now we can cross simplify here, divide by 5, we get 1 and 12, and sure enough, 1 times 12 is 12, and 12 equals 12. So our solution is x equals 60. As we continue on to got it B, this question, -2/9 d equals 4. Well, we want to multiply by the reciprocal of -2/9, which is -9/2 on both sides. And in doing so, this cancels out, and we're left with d equals, and we'll rewrite this 4 over 1 times -9 over 2. And look to see if you can cross simplify anything. In the 4 and the 2, we can divide by 2 to get 1 and 2. And so that d equals 2 times -9 is -18 over 1. So d equals 18. Now we do need to show a check step as well. We'll start by rewriting the original equation, negative 2/9 times d equals 4. We'll make our substitution in, negative 2/9 times negative 18 over 1 equals 4. Look to see if you can cross simplify. The 9 and the 18 I can divide by 9 to get 1, and negative 18 divided by 9 is negative 2. And then we have negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4, and that does equal a positive 4. It checks out. Our solution is d equals negative 18. Now for example C, I'll kind of move over here to the right side of the page so we can have some room to show this. For example C, we have 15 equals 5/3, a little ahead of myself, n. Well, we need to multiply now by the reciprocal of 5/3 since that's the coefficient. 5/3 is the coefficient with the n. And so we need to multiply by the reciprocal here, which is 3/5 on both sides. Well, that cancels on the right side. On the left side, we're left with 3 over 5 times 15 over the 1 equals n. And now if we cross simplify, divide by 5, and you get 1 and 3. 3 times 3 is 9 equals n. And of course it was 9 over 1, which is just the 9. And for our check step, start off by writing the original equation. 15 equals 5/3 n. Substitute in for n the 9, and we'll write that as 9 over 1. See if you can cross simplify, which you can by dividing by 3. And lastly, 15 is equal to 5 times 3 is 15, 1 times 1 is 1, 15 over 1 is just 15. It checks, 9 equals n. Continuing on now to D. Negative 24 equals negative 6/7 p. Let's multiply by the reciprocal here, and that's going to be negative 7/6 on both sides. We have some lovely cancellation going on the right. On the left, we're left with negative 7 over 6 times negative 24 over 1 equals p. Cross simplify now, divide by 6. You get 1 and negative 4. And negative 7 times negative 4 is a positive 28. Now, again, 28 over 1 equals p. 28 equals p. And for our check step, start by writing the original equation, negative 24 equals negative 6/7 p. Substitute in your answer of 28, which we'll write as 28 over 1. See if you can cross simplify, which you can by dividing by 7. And you get negative 24 equals negative 6 times 4 is negative 24. It checks. Our answer is 28 equals p. So these 4 examples will hopefully show you how to multiply using the multiplicative inverse on both sides to solve equations. Now there is a wrinkle to these, and that involves mixed numbers. And so if we look at example D, we'll come up to the top to solve example D. We have 4 1/6 equals 3 1/3 C. Now I would first rename both of these as improper fractions. 4 times 6 is 24, plus 1 is 25 sixths, equals 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10 thirds C. Now the 10 thirds is the coefficient with the C, so I need to multiply by the reciprocal or the multiplicative inverse, which is 3/10 on both sides. And this turns out to be rather convenient, as these simplify out. And also, I can cross simplify the 10 with the 25 by dividing by 5 to get 2 and 5. And the 3 and the 6 I can divide by 3 to get 1 and 2. You don't have to rewrite these, but I'm going to just to kind of show you. You have the 1/2 times the 5/2 is going to equal our C now. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 2 is 4. So 5/4 equals C, which is the same thing as 1 and 1/4 equals C. Both work as answers. And to show now a check step, start with the original equation, and actually let's start with the improper fraction equation. 25 sixths equals 10 thirds C. We'll substitute in the improper fraction, since when we multiply fractions they must be improper. So we'll have 25 sixths times, or equals 10 thirds times 5/4. We can cross simplify the 10 and the 4 by dividing by 2 to get 5 and 2. And sure enough, 25 sixths on the left side equals 5 times 5, which is 25. 3 times 2 is 6. So our answer, 5/4 and 1 1/4. As we continue on now to example E, we have negative 9 5/8 W equals 108. Let's get both of these as fractions or improper fractions. Save the negative for the end here. 9 times 8 is 72, plus 5 is 77. So this is negative 77 over 8W equals 108 over 1. Now I can multiply by the reciprocal, negative 8 over 77 on both sides. Now on the left side it simplifies quite nicely. Not so much on the right side. W is going to equal, we do need to multiply here, the 108 times 8, and using a calculator, I got 864 over 77. Well, that is our answer, and actually it's going to be, a negative. We don't want to lose track of the negative 8 here, since it was negative 8 times 108. So one of our answers is negative 864 over 77. And now to get this back into a mixed number, we can take our 864 and divide it by 77. 77 goes into 86 one time. Subtract that 77 and you get 9. Bring down your 4. Goes in another one time. Get the 77. Subtract here. You get 17. And so W also equals a negative 11 and 17 77ths. Now, to finish this question by showing a lovely check step, start with the original equation, which is actually, once again, we'll start with the original improper equation. Negative 77/8 W equals 108. We'll substitute in our W, negative 77 over 8 times negative 864 over 77. equals 108. And cross-simplify. Negative 77 and 77 factor out into 1 and negative 1. And actually, 864 divided by 8 can also simplify by dividing in 8. That's 1 and negative 108, conveniently enough. And so as we finish the question, negative 1 times negative 108 is 108 equals 108. Crazy, but it works. We're going to skip example F in these notes and move on to our decimal equations. Solve 3 and 1500ths equals 4500ths times n. Well, you're just going to divide by 4500ths here on both sides and get 7. And so, as we move on to G, 4 and 9/10ths equals 700ths times T. Well, divide by 700ths on both sides of the equation here. This is going to cancel out. And now, if you were long dividing, 4.9 divided by 0.7, remember, you cannot have a decimal point on the outside. So I need to move this decimal point over 1 to the right. I need to match that on the inside. And so this becomes 7 divided by 49, which is just 7. And so the answer to this equation is 7 equals T. Cool. So as I go into my check step for this one, start with the original equation, 4 and 9/10ths equals 7/10ths times T. Substitute our answer of 7 in. And again, if you need to show this, 0.7 times 7, you get 49 with one number to the right of the decimal point, so you need one number to the right in your answer, 4.9. So 4.9 does equal 4.9. And just a note on the work that I tried to show here, we show all of our equation stuff, all of our check stuff kind of just in a nice line. And then if we do need to show kind of our work with long division and multiplication, we kind of show that off to the side. That's the best way to organize our work. We don't want to kind of mix this up in that, if that makes sense. Now, for H, negative 1 4/10 m equals 2 1/10. Well, divide by negative 1 4/10 on both sides. This cancels nicely. And again, now, off to the side, we'll have 2.1 divided by negative 1.4. We need to move this number once to the right, or I'm sorry, this decimal once to the right. So we need to move this decimal also once to the right. So we have negative 14 divided by 21. And we will need a couple zeros here. So as we divide this, 14 goes into 21 one time. Subtract the 14, and you get 7. Bring down your 0. 14 goes into 75 times. 5 times 14 is exactly 70. And so we get our answer. Do not forget the negative of negative 1.5, or negative 1 5/10. So m equals negative 1 5/10. And as we show a terrific check step, start with the original equation, negative 1 4/10 m equals 2 1/10. Substitute in our answer of negative 1 5/10. Oops. And as we show our work off to the side here, negative 1.4 times negative 1.5. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 1 is 5, plus that 2 is 7. Have a 0. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. add these together, 0, 11, 2. We have one number to the right in the first, one number here. So we need two numbers to the right of the decimal point in our answer, which is 2.10. Remember that a negative times a negative is a positive, and so 2.10 is the same thing as 2.1. It checks out. M equals negative 1 5/10. Now we're also going to skip example I. Latoya's softball team won 75% or 18 of its games. Define a variable, then write and solve an equation to determine the number of games the team played. Now they won 18 games, which was equal to 75% played. Let n represent the number of games played. Write and solve an equation. So 75% as a decimal is 0.75 times the n is going to equal those 18 games that they won. Divide by 0.75 on both sides and you get 24. So Latoya's softball team played 24 games. And that is it for this lesson in Chapter 2, Solve Equations with Rational Coefficients. Just remember, multiply by the multiplicative inverse. Good luck.